winter is here. Although here in Scotland, technically speaking, winter has been here for quite a long time and has never really left. Hello everybody, how are you doing? And welcome to today's episode of the vlog. My name is Sean and I'm a YouTuber from Edinburgh in Scotland. Right here on my channel, I talk all about Scottish culture, I talk about pop culture and lots of things in between. And in today's episode, I'm talking about Game of Thrones because Season 8 has launched and I'm going to be giving you guys a bit of a Scottish perspective on the series. But first of all, before I get too heavily into it, I just want to say welcome to everybody. Thank you so much for joining in with this episode of the vlog. It is great to have you here. And if you're new, please do not forget you need to hit the red subscribe button down in the bottom corner because then you will be part of the family and you won't miss any of my videos from here on in. So hit the button. Have you hit it? Of course you have. Thank you for joining in. Right, first of all, before we get into this, I got a message the other day, right, from an HBO/Diageo representative on email that read, "Does winter is coming mean anything to you?" Of course it bloomin' does. I think it means something to just about half the people on planet Earth. So I got this box. If I give it a shake, can kind of hear like a gargling, guggly sound. Get the top open. Yes! Huh. Dear Sean, Scotch has officially entered the realm. In collaboration with HBO, we are proud to introduce the Game of Thrones single malt Scotch whisky collection featuring 8 rare Scotches. Scotches? Alright, we'll go with that. Scotches, 8 rare Scotches, each paired with one of the iconic houses of Westeros. Being Scottish, of course, whiskey runs in our blood here. I'm obviously a big fan of whiskey, obviously a fan of Game of Thrones, so this is pretty cool. Let's see what I've got here. Oh, Singleton Glendullan Select. House Tully. Look at that. That is a thing of absolute beauty. I want to stroke it. Now, I'm not really sure if I should be opening this, but you know what? I'm going to do it. Wow. It's also got Game of Thrones there on the top. Nice touch. I like the colour of that. That looks good and strong. I'll make a poll right on the top corner here. Up there, I think. Should I keep this as a collector's item forever? Might be worth money one day, or should I just drink it? Always drink responsibly. Right, okay, let's get that back safely. And you know what, the interesting thing about this whiskey, House Tully, is the characters involved. Catelyn Stark, big name from House Tully. One character in particular, Edmure Tully from House Tully, a big actor in another show that I'm going to talk about in relation to this review, okay? I'm giving you my Scottish review and perspective on Game of Thrones. Interesting stuff, right? Season 8 has just launched. Winter is here. It was out last night in the United States and also about 2 in the morning here in the UK. But it's on again tonight in the UK. And I just want to give you a bit of a perspective, a Scottish perspective on this show, on this amazing, fantastic series and how I came to be involved and what I think of it. So throughout time, right, throughout my history, I've never really been a big fan of this type of series historically. But then I started to watch a show called Outlander. Some of you guys might have heard of it. I really enjoyed it, especially because of the Scottish connection with the show. I think principally the thing about Outlander that got my attention was it was really about Scottish history. Just fascinating to see all the Scottish filming locations. Then I started having discussions with some friends, for example, Moscow, who is another vlogger here in Scotland, and we've done a lot of videos together on these types of subjects. In fact, we just done one on Game of Thrones as well. And then I kind of noticed there was this rivalry between Game of Thrones and Outlander and the actors involved and all that. It was all a bit friendly. We even started a little bit of an unintentional meme war between the two on Twitter. There's certainly some debate as to who is the bigger catch. Jamie Fraser or Jon Snow? Sam Heughan or Kit Harington? I'm not sure this is a debate that could ever be decided right here in the vlog, for example. And I think it's interesting that Sam Heughan, who is the lead actor on Outlander, auditioned for Game of Thrones 7 times and was rejected throughout. And I think this was before he got his big shot in Outlander. But I just think that's an interesting anecdote for sure. Another big important actor from Outlander in Game of Thrones, for example. Edmund Tully. Tobias Menzies.
I think King Rob understands we're not going to win this war if he's the only one winning any battles.
Great actor, we all love him as Outlander fans, and it was really cool and interesting to see him on Game of Thrones. So I think that's about all the crossovers that there are between the two shows, but listen, as soon as I started to watch Game of Thrones, I think things changed for me. Outlander was absolutely sensational from the get-go. The first 2 seasons were amazing, right? And then I feel since the first 2 seasons, it's kind of maybe dropped back a little bit, where I feel Game of Thrones was the opposite, at least from my perspective, right? Game of Thrones, the first 2 seasons, I couldn't ultimately connect the dots properly between all the characters and the houses, and I was really confused throughout the 2 seasons, and I must admit I didn't enjoy it by that stage. But after the first 2 seasons, and I really started to understand who was who, why was everybody fighting between houses, and the whole purpose of everybody and why they were fighting, and the main characters. Then I started to think, wow, Game of Thrones is actually incredible. So I definitely had a bit of a flip experience between Outlander and Game of Thrones, as to Outlander was right from the get-go, and Game of Thrones was a slow burner, but once I was into it, I have not been able to stop watching, and I'm just so glad we have finally made it to season 8. I'm also going to be doing some live videos actually reviewing Game of Thrones episode. I won't do proper episode reviews probably here on this channel unless you guys really want that. But listen, on Instagram, and you can follow me up above, I will be doing live reviews on my Instagram account after watching an episode, and I'm even going to invite some of you guys and some people who are interested in Game of Thrones, because on Instagram Live you can literally invite people to come on and do a kind of duet with you if you like. So that will be cool for sure. From a Scottish perspective, actually, we were talking about the Outlander connection and the Scottish actors and cast who might have been involved. There have actually been about 11 or 12 people who are Scottish. These are actors who are on Game of Thrones, and I think that is really, really cool, and not many people know this, because a lot of these actors, as in most of the people in Game of Thrones, were pretty much unknown before they kind of made their big time appearances on Game of Thrones. Not all of them, but I think that's definitely the impression. So let's go through some of them. First of all, Rose Leslie, Ygritte, Jon Snow's love interest. Obviously meets a tragic end, but listen, she is Scottish through and through. Grew up in Aberdeenshire, in a castle I believe. Daughter of the chief of the clan Leslie. How about that? Obviously got married to Kit Harington. I think they had a big Scottish wedding, which is pretty cool. Very big Scottish connection there with one of the major characters in this series. Then we've got Iain Glen. Now, I know some people will definitely know who Iain Glen was before Game of Thrones, but I didn't, right? I think he's been involved in a couple of kind of soap-type series throughout the UK. And it's not obvious, especially in Game of Thrones, from his accent where he was from. I think you can probably tell from my accent, for example, watching this video, that I'm very much Scottish, right? Iain Glen has got a very soft accent. Definitely from, I would say, probably here in Edinburgh as well, or certainly spent time here. So definitely, like me, a bit of a softer Scottish accent. And you know what? He has definitely been one of my favourite characters throughout Game of Thrones. I've really enjoyed watching him. I think he's great. And like the other day I was watching a Netflix documentary about Scottish Wildcats, and I heard the voice and I thought, that is Iain Glen from Game of Thrones, and indeed it was. So yeah, he's definitely active in doing Scottish types of films like that. I really, really enjoyed his presence, and great to get to know him really through the screen. Sandor Clegane. Clegane, is that how you say it? Anyway, we all know him as the Hound. What a great character he has been in Game of Thrones. I've actually loved watching him in this. And he's Scottish. I didn't know this. I had no idea that that guy is Scottish. And apparently, that guy used to paint the Forth Bridges. James Cosmo, Jeor Mormont. James Cosmo, he actually is pretty well known in Scotland. He was in Trainspotting 1 and not the second one, was he? I can't remember. Anyway, he is a very well known face in Scotland. He was also in Braveheart, I think. He was also in Outlaw King recently. I actually got to meet him on the red carpet, a really, really awesome guy from right here in Scotland. So those are just a few of the Scottish big names that were in this series, but like I said, there was at least 10 or maybe 12 actors of Scottish descent who were in Game of Thrones. But another interesting Scottish connection, right, before we really get into the kind of guts of reviewing this. Big episode, actually covered a couple of episodes, big scenes, the Red Wedding, we all loved it in a really kind of, wow, that was shocking kind of way, right? What a moment that was, the Red Wedding. Did you know that Red Wedding sequence was all inspired by a real life event here in Scotland? And I'm actually going to be doing episodes in the coming weeks talking all about this, right? The Glencoe Massacre, so I won't get too heavily involved, but let's just put it this way. The events from the Red Wedding were very, very similar to something that happened between two Scottish clans right here in the Scottish Highlands, actually. And obviously that come from the books and then turned into what happened in the show. What a moment. It was just unbelievable. And to think that something like that actually happened, I mean, literally things like this, you can write it, you can make it up, but when you've got such amazing source material here in Scotland, you might as well borrow some of it, right? Great to see that in the show, and great to see where the inspiration for that came from. If you are interested, look up the Glencoe Massacre and you'll see what I mean. But let's move on from that. Let's get my true Scottish reaction to Game of Thrones. And I think the first thing that I found shocking about Game of Thrones, right, which is pretty unlike a lot of the other similar types of series that I've watched, is the fact that a lot of the big characters, your favourite characters, were killed off at will throughout. And to be honest with you, I don't even think it's a fact some of the times that they were killed off. It was the fact that they were shockingly killed off, brutally killed off, and definitely unexpectedly killed off all the time. I mean, this is something everybody says about Game of Thrones, but it's definitely something that strikes you when you watch it. Ned Stark, for example, I thought big things were going to be coming from Ned Stark and his future, like major character, one of the main characters. And then, like, they chopped his head off. And I think it was one of these things, like, you never actually expected he was going to die. I never really thought he was going to die because he was such a big, important part of the series until that point. I knew he was up there on the plinth, ready to get on the chopping block, but I just thought like something's going to happen and he's not actually going to be killed. And that's what's genius about this show, is you kept wondering about these types of things until it actually happens. And right up until the moment he sliced his head off, I just couldn't believe it. But from that moment on, it changed things forever, because then you realised if they could kill off Ned Stark in such a manner, they could literally kill off anybody. And of course, that's exactly what they've done. Any of our favourite characters could go at any point from there on in. And I think that's something really unique and special about Game of Thrones, right? You can't really get attached to anyone. And even now, like getting ready for season 8, who's going to go? We don't really know. But it could be anyone. I don't think anyone is safe. Alright, okay, so my favourite character throughout Game of Thrones has been Tyrion Lannister, acted by Peter Dinklage. And I dread saying that, and maybe I shouldn't say it, because of saying that, he's just going to be the next one that they kill off, right? But listen, Peter Dinklage's acting has been so amazing in this series. It has like literally astounded me throughout. He is absolutely sensational, and all the little quirks he brings to that character has been so phenomenal. I've really thoroughly enjoyed watching him progress as a character. He's definitely the main guy for me, no doubts. I really love Tyrion, and I would love to know your thoughts on that. Do you agree with me or not? I think Game of Thrones literally wouldn't have been anywhere near as good without him. Like I said, it's the quirks he brings to it and just the way he's delivered a lot of the lines. It's not just the quirks though, he was so intelligent and witty throughout. He kept us laughing and he kept us guessing as well. And I think when we actually got to the point when he was on trial and we were all like, wow, he's been such a tough guy throughout and so cunning and clever, and maybe this will be his end point. You know, I was a bit worried then, like, to be honest with you. Of all the moments I thought that he might go, I definitely thought that was probably the most likely. I mean, it would have been a tragic end, right? But nonetheless, great actor, great character. He's been the biggest surprise of this for me. And I think the fact is he's from the kind of bad family, if you like, makes it all the more intriguing. I've just really thoroughly enjoyed Tyrion as a character, and I really enjoyed the show a lot because of that. And then we're talking about deaths, okay? Another thing that really took me by surprise was Jon Snow's death. And then resurrection. Because like, you kind of expect the show will do some really kind of crazy fantasy stuff. But then when they took it to that level, like, I was just amazed. And I'm not necessarily complaining because we need Jon Snow in the show. We need him there, right? But it was definitely a big surprise and a shock to see how that storyline played out, right? In the end, I was delighted they brought him back, of course, and I bet all you guys were as well, but it was just like a shocking moment. Another thing that I found shocking is the way that the wildlings were kind of portrayed throughout, and then suddenly that flipped around on its head. They went from being these really rough beasts that you don't really want to associate yourself with to being like allies in a lot of senses. So the wildlings, and I think the scene that really got me was the big battle they had at Hardhome. Thought that was so fascinating because from that point when Jon Snow went there and had a big fight with them all, it was like, wow, there's a lot of good guys in that side. And maybe they will definitely have huge parts going forward. And I was really pleased to see that that was the case. There's another shocking thing about that specific scene, because until that point, I think that we had probably all thought that the worst of the bad guys in this whole series were actually people. But then those White Walkers came along in that battle, and then we were like, wow, there are no people on this planet in Game of Thrones who are as badass or scary as these White Walkers and their dead army. It was shocking because it was like, okay, we've got a new bad guy in town and they take no prisoners. And like I said, I probably had never been too sure of the wildlings until that point, but I thought they really came through. Tormund, for example, great character. I really enjoy that character as well. I think he's one of the main for me. Great to see him progress and go forward and not be killed off. It almost became like Jon Snow's number 2 in battle, and I think that's just been really awesome to see. And then taking us through into season 8 is Daenerys. I think what has been great, this show has built this storyline of Daenerys from the beginning until right at the end, I believe, of her becoming this strong female character who is ultimately going to go back to Westeros and attempt to take the throne. It's been so fascinating how they've managed to sew all that together. From her kind of humble beginnings at the start of all this until how she's amassed all this power, it has been really amazing to see. And I think throughout, what has been great is to see all these strong female characters who could end up being the winners of this whole thing, right? It's just been such a great revelation for me, this show. I would never have usually watched something of this genre, but I have enjoyed it immensely. And admittedly, it took me quite a while to get into it for all the reasons I said. It was a slow burner, but once you're into it and once you understand who's who, what's what, the houses and all that kind of stuff, then it really gets going, and it has been just absolutely fantastic. and I'm really, really sad that it's the last season. And I wanted to give you guys my thoughts because, like, it is one of these shows that I have found that people from all different kinds of backgrounds and all different kinds of places who watch all different kinds of shows have been able to kind of come together and watch. So I want to know your thoughts on that. And I guess one of the things that did put me off is this kind of fantasy aspect of dragons and fire and all that kind of stuff. But really, when I think about the other shows I watch as well, there's a lot of really bizarre and crazy stuff that happens in them as well. And it's obviously had such a big impact culturally into the fandoms. I just really love that aspect of it. It's obviously been everywhere. They've been promoting this like crazy. This video is not sponsored in any way, by the way, although I did get gifted that awesome whiskey. But guys, I really want to know your thoughts on Game of Thrones, the seasons that you've watched so far. What have you thought about it? And I would definitely encourage you, because of what I've said, to hang on in there. There will be a point where it's like, right, I've got it now, and I'm enjoying it. Actually, this is amazing. Because that has been my journey and my experience. And what comes next, you have to wonder as well, because Game of Thrones will leave a gaping hole in a lot of people's lives in terms of this type of genre of stuff. But there is more coming. Apparently, Lord of the Rings is going to be setting up to film a series, a brand new Lord of the Rings series, right here in Scotland, okay? Anyway guys, thank you so much for watching and being part of this. It is great to have you here, great to chat, and I will join you down in the comments with your thoughts and my thoughts after this video is aired. But until the next adventure, I hope you have a good night, morning, evening, afternoon, or whatever time of day it is, wherever you are in the world. Take care.